Hi everybody, Miss Jurgens here, and we are going to talk about dilations in this video. So let's review quick what dilations are, and this is just a review video, but a dilation is a type of transformation. I want you to think to yourselves, I'll give you a few seconds to do this, but can you think of the 4 different kinds of transformations? Just think for a minute. I'm going to give you some time. I want you to try and see if you have them memorized. Okay. What are the 4 different kinds of transformations? Write them down or think of them in your head if you can. I'll give you a clue. One of them is the one we're doing in this video. Okay. Dilations. So that's one of them. All right. All right. Time's up. Check yourself. Here we go. Dilations is one. Did you get translations? Did you get rotations? And the last one is reflections. All right. Those are the 4 different kinds of transformations. We're doing dilations here. All right. So let's talk a little bit again about dilations. Dilations are kind of different from the other 3 types of transformations. The 3 transformations, the shape itself, the object itself doesn't change. It just moves. In a dilation, the size of your object is going to get bigger or smaller. It's going to grow or it's going to shrink. All right. And you'll know if it's supposed to get bigger or smaller depending on what the scale factor is. So when you dilate something, you have a scale factor. All right. And the scale factor, we're going to talk about when we do the example. All right. But your scale factor is going to be important. All right. So when you are making something larger, you'll know it's supposed to be larger because your scale factor should be greater than 1. Okay. The scale factor for a dilation that is going to grow in size should be a number bigger than 1. Okay. When something is going to shrink, or if you're going to make it smaller, then your number that your scale factor is, your scale factor should be between the number 0 and 1. Okay. So when we talk about 0, between 0 and 1, we're talking about like a fraction. Okay. So that might be a half. It might be a third. All right. All of those could be your scale factor if you're shrinking your object. All right. And larger, again, it's got to be bigger than 1. So it could be like 4. You could be you could dilate it by 50. All right. That would be a really big one. But essentially, when you're doing something larger, it's got to be a number greater than 1. If you're dilating it and your scale factor is 1, your shape isn't going to change. It's not going to move. Okay. So here we go. Let's do an example. All right. And my instructions are right here. I'm going to dilate the square A, B, C, D. And it is a square. I had to check that for a second. I got nervous. By a scale factor of 3. And then again, by a scale factor of half. By a half. Okay. So we're going to dilate this object twice. We're going to dilate this shape twice. Here we go. Let's do that. So when I dilate something, we're going to start with our pre-image. All right. That's our first image here. Okay. And then we are going to dilate it. That's what my arrows mean, is that we're dilating it. And that becomes our new image. Okay. So my pre-image, I'm going to go ahead and figure out what my ordered pairs are, what my X and Y values are. So when I start with A, I'm going to the left 1, 2. So that's a -2. And I'm going up 1, 2. So that's a +2. So my ordered pair, my point A is at -2, 2. Point B, we're going to the right 1. So that's +1. And we go up 1, 2. That's a +2. Point C, I'm going to the right 1 and down 1. So my X value is a +1. Since we went down, it's now a -1. And my point D, I went to the left 1, 2. So that's a -2. And I went down 1. So that's a -1. Now, when I dilate by a scale factor of 3, what I need to do is I need to multiply all of my ordered pairs by my scale factor. Okay, so my dilation here means I'm going to multiply, I'm going to put a times symbol here by 3. Okay, actually, let's do this. Let's put this up here. We're going to multiply by 3. Okay, and I can still do my little arrows here. So my new point here, my A prime, if I take negative 2 times 3, well, 2 times 3 is 6, and negative times a positive gives me negative 6. Okay? You do the same thing with your y value. You're going to take this 2 times 3, that's 6, and they're both positive, so my answer stays 6. Stays as positive 6. All right? I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to multiply everything by 3. All right, 1 times 3 is positive 3. 2 times 3 is positive 6. I'm going to check my math here as I'm doing it. C prime, we're going to multiply both of these by 3. 1 times 3, positive 3. Negative 1 times 3 gives me a negative 3. Negative times a positive gives me a negative. And last but not least, we have D prime. I've got negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. Woo! All right, so you always want to check your integer rules when you're doing this because those negatives and positives are super important. All right, and you always multiply everything by whatever the scale factor is. So for the first dilation we're going to do here, we're multiplying everything by a scale factor of 3, so everything is being multiplied by 3. I can go ahead and plot these points now. I've got A prime at negative 6, positive 6. So my x value is negative. I'm going to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to go up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you know, I'm going to go ahead and make this a different color. Let's do blue for that. I want to label it. I always label right away because I don't want to forget which points are which. And this is my image. So I have 1 tick mark there. Same thing for B. I'm going to go ahead and plot point B. Point B was 3, positive 6. Positive 3 means I go to the right. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right there. I'll go ahead and connect those. And let's label it as point B. Ooh, that was a fun B prime. I've got C prime here. 3, negative 3. My x value is positive, so I'm going to the right. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going down. Y value is negative, so I'm going down. 1, 2, 3. Go ahead and connect those. Oh, look at that line, but look, it's going to straighten for me. Man, I love that. All right, C's have been really hard for me to draw here, but that's not too bad. C prime, and then finally, I've got D prime, negative 6, negative 3. So going to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Down, 1, 2, 3. Ooh, I wanted that to be blue. Go ahead and connect those. And I do want to label my last point here, D prime. All right. But I'm not done, right? I've got to now dilate my new shape, okay, my image. I need to dilate that by a factor, scale factor of 1/2, all right? So what I'm going to do here, because this just helps me if I can get in my box, I'm going to go ahead and recopy down these points right here. A prime was negative 6, 6. B prime was 3, 6. C prime was 3, negative 3. And D prime was negative 6, negative 3. Now what you could do on your paper is you could just do your second prime over here, your second dilation. You could keep writing, but I feel like I'm going to run out of room. So that's why I'm just going to recopy down and redo this all here. Now this time I am not multiplying by 3, right? My scale factor is now 1/2. So I need to multiply everything by 1/2. And since this is my second dilation, this is now double prime, okay? So I'm multiplying negative 6 by 1/2. Now you can think about doing that in a few different ways. If you've got a calculator at home, please use a calculator. All right, go ahead and use that. I would be letting my students use that in class. So use your calculators if you got them. But I think about cutting something in half, right? So if I've got negative 6, if I were to split that into 2 groups, there should be 3 in each group. So negative 6 times 1/2 is going to be negative 3. You still need to follow your integer rules for multiplying and dividing. So a negative times a positive is a negative. So I've got negative 3 there. And now I have positive 6 times 1/2. Well, we just did negative 6 here. It's going to be the same thing. It's going to be 3, but this time it's positive because both of my numbers are positive. All right, we're going to do the same thing for B. So I'm going to multiply by 1/2. I've got B double prime. All right. Now 3 times 1/2, that's a little bit trickier, okay? Because if you split 3 into one group, you're not going to get whole numbers because you can't have one group with 1 and another group with 1. That's only 2. But if you put 2 in both groups, then that doesn't work either. So if you've got a calculator, you can go ahead and type that in. But 3 times 1/2 is going to give you 1.5 or 1.5. Those mean the same thing. All right. I'm going to write it as 1.5 on here. For me, that's just a little bit easier when I think about graphing. All right. But 3, half of 3 is 1.5. Think about like $3. If you're going to take $3 and split it in half, that's $1.50. Okay. So I've got 1.5. They're both positive, so it stays positive. And 6 times 1/2, we've done that. It's 3. Let's go ahead and do our next one. We're still timesing by 1/2. This is now C prime. All right. 3 times 1/2, that's 1.5. They're both positive, so it stays positive. Negative 3 times 1/2 is negative 1.5. One's positive, one's negative, so my answers are going to be negative. And then last, I'm multiplying D by 1/2. So D double prime. Negative 6 times 1/2 is negative 3. And then negative 3 times 1/2 is negative 1.5. So now I can go ahead and plot these new points. This is going to be my final answer, is this second dilation, okay? You may have some that only asks you to dilate something once. After you do this, you're done. But if you've got to dilate something more than once, then you've got 2 steps there that you need to take to finish it out, okay? So I can plot these new points. I've got A prime. Let's see, what color should we use? I'll use yellow, I guess. A prime is negative 3, 3. Negative 3 means I'm going to the left. 1, 2, 3. Positive 3 for Y means I'm going up. 1, 2, 3. So this is now a double prime. Looks a little bit like a B. Let's see if I can make that a little bit better. There we go. A double prime. I can plot my B double prime. All right, B double prime is 1.53. Now that 1.5 is a little bit tricky here, okay? If I look, I've got 0, 0. Here's 1. And then if I go over one more, this is 2. Okay? I can't go all the way to 2 because it's 1.5. 1.5 falls right in the middle between 1 and 2. So this point is not going to be perfectly on one of these dots. It's going to be in the middle of a square. So I go 1, 1.5 is just halfway there. Okay? And then positive 3, I'm going up. 1, 2, 3. That is my point for, I'm going to do a smaller thing here. There we go. I don't like that color. Let's do a different color. Let's do like orange. I like that. That's going to be your B prime, okay? And let's go ahead and do a larger or a smaller. Let's go ahead and do it. Let's make this A prime orange so that way it's consistent. All right, and I'll connect those. A to B prime. And I want to label that, right? Or B double prime, I'm sorry. B double prime. I've got C double prime. All right, we're doing that fun 1.5 again. So it's positive. I'm going over 1.5 is halfway over. And then negative 1.5. Okay, so I'm going down 1. I can only go halfway. All right, so this is too bad because my C is right there. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to erase this C and rewrite it. This was my original point for C. Okay, C was right there. That was my original C. I'm just rewriting it so that this is easier to see my C double prime. So again, 1.5, and then Y is negative, so I have to go down 1.5 again. I can't go all the way to that line. I'm only going halfway. That right there is going to be my C double prime. And I'm going to write my C double prime first. And I can go ahead and connect them now. I don't know if my line's going to straighten out now that I don't have that grid line. Let's see, there we go. Oh, there we go. That works. That's my C double prime. And then I have my D double prime. That's -3, -1.5. Going to my orange here. -3 means I'm going to the left. 1, 2, 3. -1.5, I'm going down for Y again. And I go down 1. I can't go all the way down to 2 because it's 0.5, so I'm only going halfway. Right there is my D double prime. D double prime. And I will connect these last points. All right, so something that you should notice here is that my shape itself did not change. I started with a square. When I made it larger, it was still a square. And then when I made it that large square a little bit smaller, it was still a square. So it's still the same shape. Okay, your shape size does not change, or your shape does not change, just the size changes. Okay, and remember, if your scale factor is bigger than 1, if it's larger than 1, then your shape should also be larger. If your scale factor is between 0 and 1, if it's a fraction, like 1/2 or 1/3 or 3/4, or it could be a decimal like 0.3 or 0.6 or 0.5. 0.5 is a half right here. Then your shape should get smaller. All right. All right. Well, hopefully that this was helpful for all of you. Good luck.